It's definitely rotten. I think it needs to come out. He dropped the pliers to the stainless steel counter. Okay, we'll make you an appointment to get it looked at, she said, upending a bag of penne into boiling water. What are those for? Look! He hooked a finger in his cheek and leaned into her face. What am I looking at? It's rotten, he said. Look at it. It looks like a cavity. We'll make you an appointment next week. Dentists are useless. It's too far gone. His words were muffled around the finger lodged in his mouth, pushing on the cracked molar. It needs to come out, now. He grabbed the pliers from the counter. You've got to be kidding me. Honey, please. The two of them eyed the tool together. He held it out between them. I am not ripping your tooth out. Infections like this can spread quickly. I could lose my jaw. Adam, you're fine. She stirred the pasta with a slotted spoon, a wedding gift, half melted. Call your therapist. I'll make you a dentist appointment tomorrow. His toolbox was buried in the game closet, so he slipped the pliers into his bedside table, just in case. 2 weeks later, she returned from work late, sweat stains on her button-down armpits. Only a foot through the door, she saw his clothes discarded. A sweater, a shirt, an undershirt. She found him in the bedroom, peering into the vanity. With nearly his whole fist in his mouth, he was staring at a spot on his right shoulder. It's spreading, he said, around his hand. What's spreading? It's a cavity. It's gone into the bone. The muscles in his forearm tightened, and his body recoiled. Stop pushing on it. Of course it hurts. She swatted the hand from his mouth. Why did you cancel your dentist appointment? When I touch it, I can feel it in my shoulder, he said, as his hand rose back to his mouth, like a pressure valve, building. Look! He pushed it again and winced. Well, if it hurts, you need to see a doctor, she said, reaching for his hand again, this time holding on to it, her finger and thumb wrapped lightly around his wrist. We can call right now. They might still be open. No time. It needs to come out now. He turned around and reached for the drawer of the bedside table. We talked about this. I am not pulling your tooth out. I don't think I can. Sure you can. Please. I need this. Handle first, he gave her the pliers and closed her fingers around them. Even wrapped in both of their hands, the metal was a cold layer between them. Fine. But only if you promise me you'll make an appointment. I promise. She got a chair from the kitchen, and he perched on its wooden surface, tilting his head so she could get a good angle. She pressed the metal to his lips, wrapping the pliers' teeth around his rotting bit, bracing to pull it out at the root. A hard twist of her grip and his gum fibers pulled, tore, broke. They stared together at the tooth in her hand. But just a week later, she found him in the bathroom, standing naked in front of the mirror, twisting his body like wringing out a dish rag. She had just finished filling out their tax forms and was about to walk down to the mailbox to mail them. Is this a new mole? His arms were wrapped over his shoulder, fingers gripping at the skin of his back. I thought we were done with this, she said, putting the paperwork down on the washer and walking over to him. Let me see. He waited, breath held, as she checked him. I don't know, Adam. It looks fine to me, she sighed. I think it's cancer. I think it's a freckle. We just have to snip it off so it doesn't spread. This is really starting to get old, she said, turning to walk out of the room. It's not gonna make you feel better. Just do it. Please? He was reaching into the drawer over the sink, rummaging for the eyebrow scissors. Because you love me? He stood alone in the kitchen, scissors outstretched until she re-entered, her eyes steeled, looking past him to place his skin between the blades and tear it out of him. The next day, she returned home from work, a heavy weight compressing her chest, to find a vase of flowers waiting for her on the table in the entryway. A bright smile in oranges and blues. The smell of garlic and tomatoes wafted from the kitchen. He greeted her with a kiss on the cheek and a dish towel draped over his shoulder. He poured her a glass of wine. He asked about her day, and letting her mouth take over her words, she allowed her mind to wander. Watching him totter from counter to stove, the slump of his shoulders, sliding onions from cutting board to pan, she felt a calm wash over her. Her old friend, the one she thought had moved away for good, had come home now, to stay. He wiped his hands on the butt of his jeans, and she reminded him of the towel on his shoulder. He flashed her a wrinkled smile. She wanted a picture of this moment, and she closed her eyes tight to paint one on the back of her mind. It glowed in shades of orange and blue, tomato red, pink flesh, and the cracking off-white of his lips against her forehead. But in the middle of the night, he shook her awake. The light was already on. Shit! Look! It's on my hand. It's already spreading. He was already holding the saw. Through the haze of sleep, she wiped the pleasant dreams from her eyes and accepted the handle, the weight returning to her chest, because really, she'd always known it would eventually get here, to this point, and now that she was faced with it, she found that she had been preparing for it subconsciously for years. He didn't even have to ask. She simply sat up in bed, placed the biting teeth to his wrist, and pushed through, dragging the serrated metal, separating bone from bone. The blade began clean, having been used only once to build the bookcase on which they pooled their collections. But it ended a deep red. When the final push dropped the offending hand to her lap, his shoulders relaxed, and he kissed her on the forehead before sliding quickly to sound sleep. She, however, dozed only in fits in the following weeks. She wanted to say something, bring it up to him, but in the space between cutting the lumps from his lower lip and threading the hook through his nostril to pull the tumors from his brain, she never seemed to find the right time. His pain was important. She knew that. She agreed with that. And thinking her way around that fact was enough to keep her mind occupied as the sleepless nights piled on to build the wall between them. Until the night she came home and found him, lying on the kitchen table, shearing off his left pant leg with a pair of scissors, the overused saw lying on the table next to him. This has got to stop. The pain is in the bone now. It's the whole leg. What happens next? After I saw your leg off, what do I take off next? She asked, putting down her bag. This is the last one. I swear, I need this. I need to get the sickness out. There is no sickness. Only halfway through his pant leg, he put the scissors down on the table. How many pieces do I have to cut off until I can't call you my husband anymore? He swung his legs back over the side of the table and kicked his feet lightly, looking over her right shoulder. Is that what you want? No, of course not. That's not what I meant. But pretty soon, you're just gonna be a head and a pair of glasses, and then what? Who am I married to then? Don't you see that I'm doing this for us? Once we cut it all out, things will be better. No, they won't, and I can't keep doing this. I won't sit around and help you fall to pieces. No more, or I'm gone. Honey, please, just one more. Then everything will be good. He reached over beside him and grabbed the saw, handing it out to her handle first, and offering her a sheepish smile, as if he'd broken a dish. Please? She thought of what he was, what he really was, tried to picture it in her mind, the whole heap of him, then started to pull, cell by cell, piece by piece, trying to determine the exact moment at which he became something else, something new and unknown. But eventually, her mind was blank, and she never found it. Maybe he'd been that way from the start. She watched him shear through the rest of his pant leg, letting the denim fall to the floor before lying back on the table. But even as the saw bit through flesh, then muscle, then bone, she was already packing in her mind, pulling the suitcase from the closet and carefully laying her clothes inside. First the pants, then the shirts, then dresses, socks, shoes, jewelry, followed by the rest of the things that were hers, stacking them one on top of another on top of another.